Okay, when you're working with systems, what you want to point out to students always is they need to identify the variables. And when we have word problems, we're going to put each equation in the standard linear form when you're working with linear equations anyway. All right. So the indoor climbing gym is a popular field trip destination. All right. So we know we're going to be talking about a couple field trips. This year, the senior class at High School A and the senior class at High School B planned both field trips there. Okay, the senior class at High School A rented, here we go, the key thing, 2 vans, 6 buses. There we have. So whether you let the vans equal X or the vans equal V, that's up to you. And the 6 buses could be B or Y. So you could say let X represent the number of vans, or excuse me, number of students that ride in vans, and let Y equal the number of students that ride in buses. Or you could go V. Sometimes if you use the letter that represents, so V equals the number of students that ride in vans, and B will equal the number of students that ride in the buses. Sometimes that just makes it more visible. Some kids like X and Y because that's what they're used to. All right. So on this first field trip, so this is High School A, 2 vans, and means the plus sign between 2 numbers. I don't want to have that too far apart. And the number of students together is 160 students. All right. So then High School B, one van, 6 buses. One van and 6 buses for carrying a total of 149 students. All right. So here's what's a little bit different than the previous one. Notice none of them have students look at the 2 columns. And notice if you add the columns, you're going to get 3V plus 12B is equal whatever that ends up equal. Is that 309 maybe? Okay, but that's not what we want. Remember, what we're wanting is for one of the variables. So on the previous example, remember, variables cancel when you add the columns. So because when we add the columns, they will not eliminate, put parentheses around, and now we're going to subtract because 6b subtract 6b, this will cancel. So now we have 2v subtract 1v leaves 1v. 6b subtract 6v, that will cancel. And then 160 subtract 149 is 11. So we know that vans will carry 11 students. Each van will carry 11 students. So now what we do is we just take one of the original. So since this is 1V, I'm just going to use that one. So the 1V plus 6B is equal to 149. Remember, explain to them the substitution method. Well, we know the number of students that vans will carry. This van will carry 11 students. So before we can get that B by itself, we're going to subtract the 11 from both sides. Let's see, 138. And then last step, the inverse of multiplying is dividing. Looks like the buses will carry 23 students. Well, and then you'd have to spell it correctly, meaning I would have to spell it correctly. Now, if we were to put all this information on a graph and create a line of both situations, they're still going to intersect at this point. This, instead of this being X and Y, we now have, they started off with usually I like to do it alphabetically, but this time I'm going to do it, whatever we read first typically represents the X, this represents the Y. So 11, 23. And then because there's one solution, it's a consistent system and it's independent. Those two lines are independent of each other. All right, that's it for this one.